Bay West Church meets at 100 Emerson Road in Palm Bay at 11 a.m. on Sundays. We're glad you decided to check us out. God has a specific message of hope for your life and mine today. So listen up.
You think you own me, but you don't. You think you can destroy me. You can't. Your labels do not contain me. Your lies do not intimidate me. I will not be less than what I was created to be, and I will not run in fear. Time and time again, you've held me down, but not today. Today, I win the battle. Today, you run from me, because I am strong. I am courageous. I am an overcomer.
Wait, hang on. All the way back here.
Hey! 我真不敢相信这件事情发生了。
Dude, no way! I told you!
You're not gonna believe what just happened.
Long ago, this is what they felt like when it happened. And today, it's how we should feel too. Because what it meant for them, it means for us.
You know, I think it's easy sometimes for us to get excited in here when we've got the music and things going and stuff, and that's awesome and great. But I don't know about you, but when I'm about and out and about in the stores, I'm in a convenience store, I'm getting some gas or something like that, or I'm playing ball, I don't see a lot of people stop and go, yes, Jesus is risen. Do you see that a lot? Is it just me? Maybe, I don't know. But I don't feel like we see that very often. And I think a lot of the times, I felt that. I felt that for a long time in my life. You know, and I wonder why it's that way. But I'm going to be honest with you. And you know this as good as I do. You probably feel this in your life as well, is that there are, when my schedule settles down on my life, I feel like it chokes the life out of my life. You see that? Do you get that? Anybody got that? I got 3 kids, and they're active and moving, and they're involved in things, and we're just hitting that stride. In fact, this fall, we're hitting a stride where we got 3 in 3 different schools. So it's going to be ridiculous and crazy. We're already seeing how that's ramping up. Because I don't know about you, when I was growing up, there was 1 elementary school, there was 1 middle school, there was 1 high school. Actually, when I was growing up, there was 1 school, and you just went there. I grew up in rural Alabama, and you just went there. But now, it's like you have to go test these people out, because you can go to this school or that school over yonder, or this one right here. They've got this program to prepare you for college, or this program. And it's just crazy. I never anticipated when I got a picture this last week, and it had my middle child holding Braden the day he was born, you know, or that I posted. It came up in Facebook. I saw this picture, and I'm like, man, I never believed that I would be looking at these type of decisions at that moment with my last one being born, much less my first one. And there's all this stuff. And then I don't know about you, but there's things called house payments, and there's stuff called a job, and then there's bills, and then you got bills and stuff like that. And then there's stress, and you have relationships. And I don't know about you, but everybody is not, just a little transparency, everyone's not like me in my life. And so sometimes people choose to do things and think things that are different than the way that I would. And that causes me some stress. And we banter back and forth and we debate. And sometimes it happens with people that are close to you and it's difficult. Sometimes it happens with people that you work with and you're in this forced work relationship and that dude doesn't really want to work the way you want to work. And so, he's slacking off, or either maybe you're the slacker and they really want to work, and, and you're putting them behind and they're upset. And there's all this stuff that comes into your life. And then, I don't know about you, but I'm getting closer and closer to 50. And when I went and played ball, I told you guys this, I went and played ball about a month ago with a bunch of men who were like half my age. Men, I guess, they're men in size, but they're growing up. And I'm like, it took me 3 weeks to recover from that day. I had a great day, and it was a lot of fun, but I got the next morning, I'm like, oh gosh, what's this physical stuff that goes on? You get older, it starts to hurt and stuff. And then what if you get sick? You got people that say, what if someone in your family gets sick? What if it's not just the sniffles? We got, like this morning, we got my son. My son's not here today because he's sick. He's running a fever and stuff. And so he's really bummed out. He's missing out on the Easter egg hunt that's coming right after the service, so he's bummed out about that, and he's at home and all that. My mom who lives with us, she's staying there with him and taking care of him. Praise God, she's able to do that. That's awesome. But there's all this stuff. What if someone gets sick for real? Real. Like, what if it's something that's long-term in your family? What if it's something that's really dangerous? What if you have a family member, you have a friend that's into a bunch of mess that's really going to cause damage in their life, and you know it, you see it coming so hard, and it rests on you. What if you're in the middle of it? What if you're trying to manage it? What if it's you? What if you're the family member and you're in the stuff and you're in the mess and it's going to cause stuff, and you know how it is. I've been in trouble before, and you see stuff and people are going, it's going to happen, and you're telling them you can handle it, but deep down in your heart, I'm not going to handle it. This is not going to work out for me. This is not going to work well. And you know it. And all of that stuff with the schedule and with the stuff. And then you see, oh my goodness, social media doesn't help at all. The news doesn't help. Our political climate, our cultural climate in our country, it's so stressful and it's so up. And you get all of the weight of all of that stuff and the pressure. And you're trying to be on it, and it sets down on your life. And I don't know about you, but jamming all those blankets and mufflers on top of my life makes it hard sometimes for me to be excited about anything. And I see that in people's lives. And it's so hard because the more stuff comes, the harder it is to be excited. And then we come to today. So sometimes it's hard to be excited when you're struggling in the midst of all those things. And then we come to a day like today, and we talk about the resurrection. And when we're reminded of it, and we're focused, and we're in on it, and we're remembering what God has done, then we're powerfully into it. But then tomorrow hits, or the next day hits, and we're going, okay, that's great, because we all know the story, right? Jesus, he came to earth. He was fully God, fully man. He spent 30 plus years on earth, and then he died, and he never made a mistake. The whole time he was here, he never sinned. Remember last week we celebrated the culmination of this last week that he was on earth. Before he died, he came in and everybody to Jerusalem for the Holy Week celebration, and everybody cheered him and everything. It was already good, and he already knew. That's great. I appreciate you guys cheering me. Thank you, but I know how it's going to end. And he goes through this week, and he's challenged by the religious leaders in that Holy Week. And Jesus goes hard at them. He goes hard at them than he's ever gone throughout the whole time with them. He is confrontational with them, and he puts it to this test. He backs them to the wall. And then he has this time together with his disciples, this last meal, this last supper, and he shares with them. I'm not going to be around much longer, guys. We're coming to it. I look forward to this last meal with you guys. And then the story. They want to arrest him. Judas betrays him. They show up. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's praying. God, if there's any way this could pass from me, is there any other way to do this, I would rather do it. And then they show up, and then they arrest him. And then they try him falsely, and they sentence him to death on a cross. And then he's put on the cross, and he died. But there's a picture about this, and then he died, and then he rose again 3 days later, and we sang about that. And you're like, man, that's amazing. They didn't even use the little paddle thingies that they use in the emergency room because they can't do it because he was dead for 3 days. And he came back. And it's wonderful. Now, even though, sometimes I think it gets muffled because we've seen this happen on TV, right? We've seen somebody, there's always, you go find on Netflix, you'll find a story somewhere about somebody who died and then came back. You know, you got Glitch, you got all these other things that happen about people who come back and all this stuff. And we get muffled and we get used to that, but what we don't realize is the significance of the fact that Jesus died, that Jesus rose from the dead, and it's real and it's not just a story. You know, what I want to do for the longest time, just to let you know, for the longest time, even in my young Christian life, you know, I thought, man, that's awesome. Jesus died and he was raised again, and that will be great when I die and I want to deal with eternity, because then I can look back and go, yes, I believe on Jesus, and because of that belief and because of his sacrifice and because of the relationship with him, I'm going to be taken care of for eternity. That's great, but I thought for so long, even in my heart, I almost wouldn't admit it to myself, but there was a place inside where I thought, yeah, that's great over there in 50 years or 60 years or 70 years, you know, or 100. That would be great. 100 from when I accepted Christ. You know, as long as I could still play ball, I would be fine. But, you know, that a long way away, that's when that's going to be important. And then I started realizing some things. How does that affect me now? And God began to teach me through people, through sermons, through guys I knew, through folks, this understanding about the cross and the resurrection. And the reason that we're excited from it, and what I want to talk to you about today, it's where we're in this series called Overcomer. And I know we all need it. I know we all need it. Everybody in here has got something in your life that you need to overcome. And I'm going to tell you through this series, not just this morning, but the next 4 weeks, Adam and I are going to be talking about some amazing situations that all of us find our way in. We find ourselves in, and we are going to realize that God has been talking about those situations for a long, long time. And we feel trapped in them. Some of us, we're going to realize over the next few weeks that we have been in these situations. We never even understood what was going on. We just knew something wasn't right. But we're going to talk about principles from God's Word, how God has already allowed us to overcome all of these situations. Some of you may not realize that you know that you're in the curse of fear. You know, and the worry in your heart and the worry in your life that motivates the things that you do, that keeps you awake at night, is because you're in the middle of fear. And fear is driving you. And we're going to look at apathy. You may think it's okay. If I don't care, nobody can hurt me. If I don't expend it, nobody can take it. I can build up a wall and put it around me, but there's a curse of apathy in our culture and in our people. And we're going to talk about how God talked about that, how we compare, our comparison. You know, social media, you know, you look at your feed and you can find 50,000 people that look better than you, right? I do all the day. You know, you go somewhere and somebody takes a picture on a stage of a pastor and you're like, cool. Somebody took a picture of me one time. I went and looked and I'm like, man, who put a tent on the stage? Oh my gosh, that's me. I look like a tent. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. You never look as good as the other guy. You never feel as good as the other guy. They're always having more fun than you. They really look like they're having a great time. Comparison can kill you and it can steal your joy. And we're going to be talking about all of these things coming up, but today, how to overcome all of those areas. But today I want to talk to you about where overcoming begins. And what I want to paint for you is a picture that's on the cross. Matthew in chapter 27, he talks about it. I'm just going to describe this to you, okay? He talks about this picture of Jesus on the cross. And we were at a one-on-one with God conference last week. You know, we're about learning how to be disciple makers. And we talked about this and kind of workshopped this passage and we had a separate time where we went in our breakouts and we talked about this passage. And there was something that came out of it for me that was interesting. That, you know, it's amazing. You got your Easter message planned, and then all of a sudden God says, "No, I got this. Let's just add that into it." And so that's what comes up. But there's this picture of Christ on the cross, and I want you to think about this with me. Use your mental image to work with. You've got Christ, and he's on the cross. Let's just use that cross right there. He's on the cross, right? And he's nailed to the cross with hands between his arms, his hands and his feet, you know, right here usually is what they still count the hand in there. So he's nailed to the cross in immense pain. A lot of people said he was naked or barely clothed. It's humiliating. It's frustrating. You're in front of all these people, in front of God and everybody, as we would say these days, out there. And beside him, grouped with him, are two criminals. Now, he's done nothing. He's done nothing wrong. His entire existence, the entire theology of Christ is based on the fact that he did nothing wrong, yet he's being punished anyway with the worst of the worst. And a week later, everybody was for him. A week later from that, a few days later, all of a sudden, everyone's against him. And you see the crowds, and there's a crowd beside him. There's his cross, two crosses beside him. There's crowds all around, and those crowds are made up of multiple groups of people. One that's made up of people who used to be his followers. And for some reason, either they're mad, either they feel betrayed, or they just hate him, or they're just going along with everybody else. They are scoffing at him. They're making fun of him. You're an idiot. You thought you were there. You know, if it was today, it would be, you suck. That's what would be happening. And they're making fun of him, and they're tearing him down, and they're ripping his character, and they're ripping the things that he said and the things that he did. And then there's another group of people who were the religious leaders that he went hard at, and he always seemed to get the best of them. And you read all the stories, and they walked away sorrowful. You know, they're like, I can't beat that. You know, now he's on the cross, and they're over there, and they're going, hey, you stink. You're a big man. Come on off, son of God. All this type of stuff. They're cheering and jeering at him. And everybody around thinks they got the best of him. His reputation is gone. His reputation is gone. And then you look, and there's another group, and there's those who still love him. There's his friends, and they're looking at him dying. And the worst thing in the world, and I'll tell you, guys, you know what I mean. And there's his mom. And his mom is having to listen to all of that. His mom is having to watch him naked on a cross, lumped together with criminals, jeered, not cheered. An immense physical pain. Immense physical pain. I'm going to tell you, and ultimately it would kill him. But I'm going to tell you something interesting about the things in our lives. Here's the way most of the things that become the barriers and the issues that we need to overcome in our lives, they break down in four categories. There's the physical, okay? There's the physical category. It's, I'm hurt. I can't stand it. I have sickness. I have a disease. I have something that needs to be operated on. I have something. There's this physical nature that it breaks down into. Also, there's the social nature. There's the relationships that I deal with. There's people that I want to impress. There's people that I want to love. There's people that I want to convince. There's people that I have to contend with, get along with, overcome. You got pictures in your mind of the people right now that you have to contend with socially. There's relationships, there's marriages, there's parents, there's kids, there's cousins, there's nephews, there's people that you work with at your place. There's students that you go to school with. In this social area that you have to work within, and it usually end up causing some kind of barrier for you. Not only that, there's the financial, there's a resource aspect of it. The bill is coming. Do I have enough? Can I get the overtime that it takes to make enough so that I can get this? Can I do this? Can I make that? Oh my goodness, I really need a new, but I can't get a new. Then I have to go into debt. I'm going to have a credit thing, and then I've got to deal with the credit for the rest of my life at 1,000% interest with the credit card, which I hate to have, or I go into school, I'm going to get all these loans and all this stuff, and then I've got this loan debt to deal with forever, it seems. There's the financial aspect of it, but there's also there's this last one that kind of mixes up all of them. It's the approval. It's the legacy. Have I become all that I should become? Have I done what I was made to do? When I look back at my life and I write the testimony of my life, what will my life be? Those areas right there usually encompass almost everything that you deal with, everything that you did. That's where we find our deepest and darkest troubles. That's where we find the tough things in life. And here's what I want to say to you. In those areas are exactly where Jesus was being hit at that moment in Matthew 27. He's under immense physical pain. I'm just being honest with you. You know, you can go read about it. The cross, crucifixion, was ranked as, if not the most, one of the top 2 or 3 most painful ways of capital punishment. It's the most horrific thing. We probably will never see that again in civilized society. I hate to say never. You just never know. But, you know, that's a chance, because that is a horrible way to die, because it involved getting impaled on wood and hung from that, and it took hours and hours to die. It was a long, excruciating death. And Jesus is here in this pained state, knowing that death is coming, and I just got to suffer to the end of it. In immense pain the whole time. There's the physical part of it, the social aspect of it. You had the guys that used to be for him and now they're against him. You have the guys that are for him that think that he's not what he said he was. You have some people that were sitting there struggling at that point. Was he a fake? Did he lie to me? Is he going to come down? I don't know. And the whole time he's watching, the enemies are scoffing at him, and he looks in their eyes, and you know it when that dude that you don't like, he thinks he's got one over on you. He's seeing the look in all of their eyes, and he's not doing a thing about it, and it all circles back around, and there's mom, and mom is having to watch it all, and mom can't do anything about it, and he knows that's killing mom. He's in the middle of the social attack. At the same time, he's looking at this financial situation, because not only there were soldiers around and they're guarding the thing, but he didn't have much. All he had was his clothes, for Pete's sake. And what are they doing? You know the story. The soldiers have his clothes, and they're gambling right in front of him at the bottom of the cross, you know, right there in the area, in eyesight of him. I don't know the exact location, but it's where he can see. They're gambling to see who's going to take it. I don't know about you, but I don't like it when somebody takes my stuff. I don't like it if somebody takes my stuff and I can't catch them, and now I have to make up for what they took. And I don't know if I'm going to make up for it. That's something, there's a violation about that. I was robbed in college one time. And there's just a violation about being robbed that it just gets under your skin, because you can't resolve it. You can buy new stuff, but then there's all that. Okay, they're going to break in again, you know, and you want to catch them, and you never do. But, you know, that's the way that happens. It happens for us in that situation. And here you have this going on with Christ in the financial, but then there's the legacy, because you've got people that are wondering, is this what he was supposed to do? There were people that thought he was going to conquer the Roman government. He was going to set everyone free. And that was what was going to happen. They had banked their life on it. They had banked their life on he's going to be the Messiah. And they thought the Messiah meant that you came and you just cleaned house on all the people that were in oppression over us, and we would be reigning with you. And they thought that was happening right then. And they had banked on it, and they were now coming to the realization that it was not there. And you have this play going on with him. And you see him go through all of that and ultimately die. And then he's raised again. Now that is amazing. It's an amazing story. But I want to tell you what that has to do with you. In John chapter 16, Jesus said these words. This is even before he went to the cross. He's just told the disciples a bunch of crazy stuff. A bunch of stuff that's frustrating, that's scary, that's going to happen. He's done a lot of prediction about the future, and it is not rosy and pretty. And he tells them this, I've told you all this so that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, you will have many trials. Okay, that's not going to really put into me peace. I told you this stuff so you can have peace. You're going to have a lot of stuff go wrong. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart, because I have overcome the world. And I begin, how should I take heart in that? You overcame the world. You overcame the world. You overcame the world, not me. How am I supposed to be a part of that? And then you look at 1 John 5:5, and you have this verse here that says, who is it that overcomes the world? Only the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God. When John is writing here is that because Christ overcame the world, if I believe in, put trust in, put my faith in, follow Christ, I can be an overcomer too. But not just back to even. You can think a lot of times, if I just get over this struggle, I can continue on with whatever I was dealing with to begin with. But that's not how it is. I can get over it. It says in Romans 8:11, it's not just getting over it. He said the Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. Do you realize that when you accept Christ, when you put your faith in Christ, when you begin to make your decisions based on Christ, when He is your primary person, primary reason for living, you pile into His motion, the Spirit of God that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. And just as God raised Jesus from the dead, He will give life to your mortal bodies by the same Spirit that is living in you. That's not about out there. That's about right now. Do you understand that? That's about your mortal bodies where you are right now. And what He is saying here, what He's saying is that God, the Spirit of God that is living in you, is there to raise the dead parts of your life, and give them life back. And that's not out in the future. That's not somewhere else. I mean, I'm going to tell you something. My wife, she has a display case, and it has her grandmother's china in it. And when we didn't register for china, we got married because her grandmother was an artist, and she had passed on, and she hand painted an entire set of china with this beautiful. And we tote this china cabinet with us from place to place to place wherever we live. We tote from place to place, and we see that we carry this china. I don't think we've ever eaten off the china. Ever. We've never eaten off the china. It's a display place. It's a display case for what she has given us. We never use it. It never becomes something that we take. But I want to tell you, the power of God is not meant to be a prop. It's not something that's meant to just be displayed so that you can look at it. It is something that is meant to be experienced. It is a tool to be a part of your life. There's a story in the Old Testament. There's a guy named Naaman, and he was a famous general. And Naaman had a big problem. He was a great general. It's in 2 Kings, but he had a problem. He had a debilitating disease called leprosy. He contracted leprosy. Now I want you to know something. Leprosy in many ways was a death sentence in the Old Testament. It was social death because you couldn't be around people because it was highly contagious. It was death financially because you couldn't work. You couldn't employ and work with people to do what you had once done. He had to stay isolated from people. It was immense physical pain and struggle. And you know what? Legacy, it became your legacy. When you were a leper, you ended up dying of that. It was horrible. The physical nature of that was terrible. I mean, it was debilitating. You might drop a finger. I'm not kidding. You know, just boom, the finger is gone. You know, you're playing basketball with Naaman. He passes you the ball. You pick up the ball. You're like, oh, what's on this one? It's your finger, Naaman. Oh, my goodness. This is the level of thing that he's having to deal with. But Naaman trusted God. He obeyed God. Even when God told him to do something that didn't really sound that cool or that awesome or that amazing. In fact, it sounded kind of foolish. He trusted God, and God took the leprosy from him. That's one way that God will help you overcome in the power of Christ. He'll take it from you. He'll take it out of your way. He'll take it and put it somewhere else. He'll get rid of it for you. There's another way that God will help you to overcome something in your life. There's another story. It's about guys named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It was in the book of Daniel, Daniel 3. And what happened was they followed God. They were in a foreign land with a government that didn't agree with their beliefs and didn't believe in God. You know, they had their own gods and that type of thing, and they put it to a point where they had to go against the law to follow God, and they did. And the king, even though they had done great things in there, he pulled them out and said, look, okay, here it is. I'm going to put you in a fiery furnace. And he built a fire up so hot that the guards that threw them into the fire actually died because of the heat. And so you got to think these guys are fully bound. They throw them into the fire. The guys that threw them in died. And as the king gazes from a safe distance into the fire, he sees them up and kind of walking around and talking in the fire. I mean, it's so hot it burned their bonds off, and they're just kind of walking around. And he calls them. He says, hey, come out. And when they come out, there's no smoke on them. They're not burnt. They can only smell like smoke after being in the fire. Of course, the story goes, as you can go back and read it, is you know that he says, I don't see 3, I see 4 men in there. And people have said, you know, that's an angelic being or that's Christ in there with them, whatever. And there's a lot of symbolism to be brought from that. But the fact is that God put them in the fire and he made them shine through it and come out of it on the other side. So God will either remove the barrier in your life or he will redeem the barrier in your life. God will remove it or he will redeem it. But that's how God will deal with the stuff in your life when you are plugged into the Spirit of God to overcome. So in God's Spirit, you're going to do 2 things with those barriers. Now, first you can think, okay, how do I get to that place? How do I get to the place where the Spirit of God is working in my life and helping me move past barriers? The first thing you have to do is have a relationship with Jesus. You have to be in relationship with Christ. And the way you do that is recognizing who you are and that you follow Christ and giving your life, realizing that you have sinned and everyone has sinned on the earth. And that and you have to realize that he died, he came down, he lived on earth, he died, and he rose again. You know, you have to realize those things and you have to commit your life to that, to following him. And that's relationship, but it's not just relationship, it's fellowship as well. Now, what I mean by that, I want you to imagine you've got a dad and a son. Now, Jerry shared this with us, the guy that was with us last week. But I wanted to reintroduce this. Imagine you've got a father and a son. And they're walking together. And the son's a little son, and he's holding onto his dad's hand, and he's holding onto his finger. You've seen that before. A little 2-3-year-old, he's walking along with his dad. Now, there's a relationship. The dad is the son, is the dad of the son, and the son is the dad's son. There's that relationship. That's not going to be broken. Doesn't matter what happened, that's who they are. But now, say the son lets go of the dad's hand and kind of goes off to do his own thing. At that point, they're still father and son, but the fellowship between them is broken. And you know, you've seen this before. You've seen this in lives of people. You've seen, you maybe had your kids. You know, your kids, they're my kids, but at some time there's something in between us and they go do their own thing and it's a deal and we're not in fellowship, we're not connected, we're not doing life together. I'm not going their way, they're not going my way, and the fellowship is broken. The relationship is there, but the fellowship's broken. It's not what it's meant to be. But what you have to have in your life is both the relationship and the fellowship to see what Christ does. And here's what I want to tell you. You may think, if I can just get the relationship, I'm okay. If I'll just pray a prayer one time or something and I can sort of loosely connect to God, I'm doing all right. I want to tell you something. When Jesus prayed in the garden, not, Lord, if there's any other way we can do this, any other way, let's do it that way, but not my will, but yours be done. He wasn't talking about the physical suffering. I mean, they offered him painkiller. He refused it. He wasn't talking about the social embarrassment. That was not the big deal. He wasn't talking about people stealing all of his stuff and gambling for it and humiliation right in front of it. He wasn't talking about his legacy and what it would be. What he said was he didn't want his relationship and his fellowship with God to be cut off for anything, because the fellowship and the connection with God was how he withstood everything. And it's amazing that you and I go day in and day out and we'll let the fellowship lapse to do whatever. We'll let go of that finger over and over. And we don't realize what we're doing. And maybe we blame it on the problem, or we blame it on the stress, or we blame it on the emotions, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe we do that, but that's not what's going on, because that's the only thing that will save us in the midst of those situations. Let me give you an example. Let's say that God has a problem in your life, or there's a problem in your life, and here it is. This is our problem. Here's a barrier. I want to overcome that barrier. And this is what most of us do. We decide we're going to take care of the barrier. I'm going to destroy it. And we take our little toy hammer and we walk up to it and we start beating on it. And we go, it's not changing. God, what's wrong? And we do this over and over again. I'm going to tell you, I can try my hardest to break that and get that out of the way with this hammer, but what's going to happen? I'm going to tire myself out. I'm probably going to miss it and hit it and hurt myself at some point, and I will break this hammer. This hammer is your strength to fix a problem, to get rid, to overcome that barrier. Now, when you are in Christ, this is what you bring to the problem. Now, here's the thing about this. Now, y'all think I'm going to hit it and break it. I'm just going to let you know I'm not going to do it because Mark would kill me if I broke the stage, and I will do it. Here is the thing. When I bring the power of God to this, it is not based on my power alone. Only thing this has is how much I can put behind it. I don't need to put anything behind this. I just need to hold on to it when I swing it, and it's going to do the job. And that is what we have in our hands at every opportunity. And it's amazing how over and over we come to the big problems of life and we look at this and we look at this and go, oh, sorry, I think I'll just set that down over here and I'll take care of this one, God. And we go over there. And I'll tell you what, there are people in here, you have broke so many hammers, it's not even funny. And you've read the next book and you heard Tony Robbins say this and some preacher said that and you went with it. Oh, that's it. I'm just going to fix it this time. I'm going to suck it up and be better. And you have failed again, and you have blamed it on God like, what's wrong? My hammer's broke. And he said, I gave you the hammer you need. You just need to hold on to it and stay in fellowship with me. Because I'm going to tell you something. This is the truth about overcoming. And you have to know this before we start this series. That's why I chose Easter to talk about this. Overcoming. You've got to understand what this means. Overcoming begins with my willingness to connect, not with my power to conquer. And all I have to do is reach up and grab my dad's hand, and he will take care of it. He'll either move it, he'll make it irrelevant, he'll get me over it, or he will make me shine in the midst of it. But that's what it's about. And you don't get to be an overcomer until you grab that situation. I'm trying really hard not to get excited and really bust this. This is really hard. I want you to know that because I just want to wing that. But I'm not going to do it because I love Mark and the people at the mission. So anyway, this is what I'm trying to tell you. And the way you do that, one, and I'm going to tell you something. Here's where most everybody in this room is that's struggling with this. I'm going to tell you, this is two places you are. There's two places that you break up. One, you don't have a relationship with Jesus. Now, I'm telling you, when I talk about that, I want you to understand what I'm talking about because there's a lot of verbiage that people throw around, getting saved, salvation, soteria, if you want to talk about soteria, whatever you want to talk about in the Greek or whatever. Here it is. When we talk about a relationship with Jesus, it makes a time in your life where you realize, I've messed up somewhere. Now, I'm not perfect. Everybody I know says they're not perfect, right? But what you don't understand is the law of God is such that I either kept it or I didn't. If I broke one part of it, the Bible tells us in Romans that we broke all of it. All of it. So that's what I got. And you recognize, okay, I am a sinner. I've got no way to fix it. This is the best I'll ever have, and it's just not enough. God, I need you to help me. Because once I get past all these cinder blocks, there's a giant mountain called eternity, and this is not going to cut it. And I need you to do this. I need your power to take care of this in me. And you got to start a relationship with him. You realize he was the Son of God. He came to earth. He died. He died for my sin. And I commit my life from here on, my decisions, my career, the purpose of my life, the things that I do, more than my wife, more than my children, more than my mama, more than my family, more than whatever I have. It is about God at this point, and I'm going to do what he says, even if he tells me to go dip in the water 7 times. Go read that in 2 Kings. Naaman, look it up. Anyway, that's what it is. Some of us don't have a relationship with Christ. We've never been that. We may have prayed a prayer when we were like 8, and we never did anything with it. We never really followed Christ after that. We just kind of, okay, well, sure, I prayed to that, and I'm good. No, you're not. If your heart didn't change and your life didn't change and you don't see the fruit of obedience in your life to God's word and trying to put him first, I'm not saying the perfection of it, but the trending toward it at all times. If he's not concerned or considered in the things that you do, then I'm not sure. You need to check who you really follow. Because that relationship is that. The other problem is this. Some of us have that relationship, But we've let go of it. And we see a problem, and we picked our little hammer back up again, and we're trying to fix it. We have broken fellowship with God, and we have chosen our way over His. There's something come up somewhere. God said to do something. You didn't like it. You don't agree with it. You think you know better than it. And so you've said, okay, God, that's fine. You keep your power over there. I'm taking my hammer, and we will part ways. And there was a time you followed Christ, but there's this one sticking point in your heart, and you're not going to let it go. And you said, I'm going to take my hammer, and I'm going to kill that off. And it doesn't work. And here's what I see all the time. I do. I see this a lot. People try it in their own. They come to church, and maybe they accept Christ. Maybe they don't. I don't know. They come a few times, and they're like, okay, great, you came. And they take their little hammer, and they start trying to fix the problems of their life. It doesn't work. And they go, aha, I knew God didn't work. And they walk away. Never having understood what it takes or the privilege that's there. And what that happens is when I have to have the relationship with Christ, but not only relationship, but I have to have the fellowship with Him too. And what you will find until I have the fellowship, I have to hold on to Christ. It's not about my power to conquer. It's about my willingness to connect. And before we start with overcoming, we have to understand that this power to connect is what Jesus did at the cross. He overcame the physical. He overcame the social. He overcame the ultimate, not just a little bit, but the ultimate of the financial. He lost it all. He died in the worst way you could ever die to begin with. He died. The social aspect of in front of everyone, complete humiliation and separation from the people around him. And with his legacy in question, he died. He went in the grave, and the stuff of life piled on him, and it sucked it out of him. But in 3 days later, the power of the resurrection is that he came out of all of that. Anything that you and I would ever deal with, anything we could classify it with, he came out of the middle of that. And that is living inside people who follow Jesus. And it's waiting to take the things in your life and get them out of the way for the glory of God. But that begins when you accept Jesus. It begins when you get in fellowship with God and you begin to see the power of God overcoming your world where you are. Let's pray.
Thanks for being a part of Bay West today. Bay West Church meets at 100 Emerson Road in Palm Bay at 11 a.m. on Sundays. Please feel free to check us out at baywestchurch.org, or you can follow us on Facebook at Bay West Church.